Nobody wins arguments with facts. That's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud, but the evidence is everywhere if you're willing to look. You've watched someone get dismantled with statistics, hard data, peer-reviewed studies, and walk away even more convinced they were right. You've seen a person with zero credentials out-debate an actual expert just because they sounded better. And you've probably lost an argument you were objectively correct about to someone who was objectively wrong, and you couldn't figure out why. Here's what this video is actually about. Not how to be smarter, not how to memorize more counter-arguments. This is about why the human brain was never designed to seek truth in the first place, and what actually moves people. Because here's the thing, most people get completely wrong about persuasion. They think it's a logic problem. They think if they just find the right fact, the right number, the right source, the other person will update their view and say, you know what, fair point. That almost never happens, and the reason it almost never happens is something we'll get to in a few minutes. It's not what you think, and it changes everything about how you approach any disagreement. But first, let's talk about why smart people lose arguments constantly. There's a specific type of person who approaches every debate like a courtroom. They've done the research, they've got the receipts, they walk in armed with citations and confidence, and they get absolutely nowhere. Why? Because the courtroom model assumes the other person is a neutral judge evaluating evidence. They're not. They're a defense attorney for their own existing belief. Their entire mental apparatus is set up to poke holes in your argument, not to fairly weigh it. The moment you present evidence that threatens someone's identity, their worldview, or their tribe, the brain treats it like a physical threat. Cortisol spikes. Defensive reasoning kicks in. And here's the kicker. The stronger your evidence, the harder they resist. Psychologists call this the backfire effect. You shove a fact in someone's face, and they don't update. They double down. You've accidentally made it worse. This is why the guy at Thanksgiving who just asks questions and tells a few stories walks away having convinced more people than the person with a master's degree in the subject. It's not fair. It's not right. But it's the actual operating system of the human mind. So if facts don't work, what does? The answer has been sitting in plain sight for about 2,500 years. Since Aristotle laid it out in a framework so accurate it still holds up today. He called the three tools of persuasion: ethos, logos, and pathos. Credibility, logic, and emotion. Most people, especially analytical types, go straight for logos. More data, cleaner arguments, better citations. And they wonder why nothing changes. What actually moves people is ethos first, pathos second, and logos a distant third. Ethos is not about your actual credentials. It's about whether people perceive you as credible. And those two things are completely different. A confident posture, deliberate speech, the absence of filler words, a calm demeanor under pressure. These signals communicate, this person knows what they're talking about, faster than any resume ever could. The brain makes that judgment in roughly 100 milliseconds, before a single logical point has been made. So if you walk into a conversation visibly anxious, overqualifying every sentence, and hedging with, I could be wrong, but you've already lost on ethos before the argument even starts. Then comes pathos. And here's where most people get uncomfortable, because pathos means emotional appeal, and we've all been taught that emotional appeals are manipulation. But that framing is backwards. Emotion isn't the enemy of good reasoning. It's the fuel that makes reasoning matter. Stories are how humans have processed information for 100,000 years. A single specific story about one person moves people more than statistics about a million. This is documented. Charity organizations discovered decades ago that showing one child's face raised significantly more donations than showing data about thousands. One face, one name, one story. That's the algorithm your brain runs on, not spreadsheets. I still remember the first time I realized this. Sitting in a debate I had no business winning, completely out of my depth on the facts, and I just told a 3-minute story about someone I knew. The room shifted. I could feel it. No statistic I had prepared would have done that in 3 minutes. Now here's where it gets genuinely strange, and this is the part most people completely miss. The techniques that make someone persuasive are almost entirely decoupled from whether they're correct. Confidence doesn't track with accuracy. Fluency doesn't track with accuracy. Emotional resonance definitely doesn't track with accuracy. Research on expert forecasting consistently shows that the people who speak with the most authority and certainty are often less accurate than the ones who hedge and qualify. But hedging and qualifying sounds weak, and weak sounds wrong. So the uncomfortable architecture of human persuasion is this. We're running a credibility detection system that's mostly pattern matching on confidence, story, and group membership, and calling it reason. which means the person who's wrong but confident, wrong but emotionally resonant, wrong but telling the story you already believe, beats the person who's right but dull, right but clinical, right but foreign to your tribe, every single time. Here's the twist that reframes everything. The goal of most arguments isn't to change the mind of the person you're arguing with. That person is almost certainly not changing their mind in real time. Their ego is too invested, the social stakes are too high, and publicly reversing a position feels like losing face. The real audience is everyone watching. The people on the fence, the quiet ones, the ones who haven't formed a strong opinion yet and are watching to see who seems more credible, more calm, more human. That's who you're actually performing for. And the moment you understand that, your entire strategy shifts. You stop trying to corner the person. You stop piling on evidence like you're filing a legal brief. Instead, you stay calm when they escalate, because that contrast alone makes you look more credible to everyone watching. You ask questions instead of making statements, because questions are harder to dismiss, and they put the burden of explanation on the other person. You name the dynamic without attacking the person. "I think we might be talking past each other here" is not a concession. It's a power move dressed in civility. Imagine someone starting today, knowing none of this. They walk into the next disagreement and lead with stats. It doesn't land. They get flustered. They get louder. The other person gets louder. Everyone hardens. Now imagine the same conversation with a different opening. A story first. One specific example. Delivered calmly. Then a question. Then silence. Letting the other person fill it. The content of the argument is identical. The outcome is completely different. That's not manipulation. That's understanding the hardware you're working with. Because here's the thing about all of this. The people who are best at persuasion aren't the ones who fight hardest. They're the ones who've accepted that humans are not logic machines and decided to actually work with that fact instead of being offended by it. Truth is necessary. It's just not sufficient. And if truth isn't being delivered in a form the brain can receive, it might as well not exist. The real question, and this is the one worth sitting with, is whether the techniques that make someone persuasive can ever be separated from the question of what they're persuading people toward. Because anyone can learn this. And that next part, the ethics of influence, and what happens when these tools get into the wrong hands, is its own conversation.